First immediate jail term handed down in Christmas Eve cash grab. Lots of homes completed, but what's the impact on prices? And still no word yet on the fate of hostages held by Islamic State.
Hello and a very good evening. A man has been slapped with a 5-month jail term for picking up more than $160,000 in the Wan Chai cash grab on Christmas Eve. He's the first person ordered to serve time over the incident. Evelyn Leung reports.
43-year-old businessman Loy Lun Yong was sentenced at the Eastern Magistracy today. The court heard that Loy and a female friend were on a taxi passing through Gloucester Road on Christmas Eve last year. The pair saw money lying on the ground and asked the taxi driver to stop the vehicle. They got out of the cab to pick up some of the cash. Afterwards, the duo got back into the taxi, heading towards Shangwan. The pair made one more stop at a laundry shop before reaching their destination. Based on the taxi driver's statement, the police arrested Loy at the laundry shop when he went to pick up his clothes the next day. Officers went to Loy's subdivided unit at an industrial building in Kowloon Bay and found $161,500 in cash stashed under a bed. He pleaded guilty to theft. Loy admitted to picking up the money on Gloucester Road, but he said he didn't spend any of it and planned to return the money to the police. In mitigation, the defense said there's been a lot of media coverage on this incident and that the personal information of the defendant and his family members has been posted on the internet. This has greatly affected all of them, with Loy's former wife and 19-year-old daughter refusing to see him as a result. Still, the magistrate criticized those who picked up the money on that day. And even though this is Loy's first such offense, the magistrate said he needed to use this opportunity to send a strong message to society that the court will deal with these cases seriously. Loy was given a 5-month prison sentence. Yesterday, in the first conviction in the cash grab, a 68-year-old man received a suspended jail term for keeping $6,000 he had picked up. Evelyn Lang, TVB News.
The number of private residential units completed last year reached an 8-year high, but how would that affect home prices? One expert that we talked to today said prices depend on factors other than just supply. Stephanie Choi has that story.
According to figures from the Transport and Housing Bureau, the number of private residential units completed last year stood at 15,700. That's up 89% from 2013, and it's the highest figure since 2006. Last year, construction began for 17,300 private residential flats, a 22% increase year on year. Overall, the number of private units that will become available in the coming 3 to 4 years is projected to hit 74,000. That's an average of 18,000 a year, slightly below the annual target of 20,000. According to Centerline founder Shi Wing-ching, property prices will continue to go up as long as private housing supply remains below the target. He also said that there are other factors at play, even political ones.
Not too sure, but in the past, whenever there is political conflict, the political power will try to use their economic influence to give pressure to the other side. I'm afraid the central government will try to use this kind of economic influence also. For example, they are going to globalize renminbi. There's a function for Hong Kong to play in future, but he can give some of the role to Singapore, to London, to show the central government is not very happy. Then people will consider whether it is a good place to buy property in Hong Kong.
Meanwhile, an academic says home prices will only head south after interest rates in Europe and the United States go up. Eddie Hoy, who teaches at Polytechnic University, does believe prices will stabilize as supply increases. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.
An independent expert panel report released by the government has cited numerous problems that led to the delay in the cross-border express rail link project. The report pointed out that the Railway Development Office under the Highways Department was not well prepared for its role of monitoring and verifying agreements relating to the Guangzhou-Shenzhen-Hong Kong Express Rail link. There were no documents detailing the roles and responsibilities of the main parties, namely the Transport and Housing Bureau, the Highways Department and the MTR Corporation. As a result, there was no mechanism for the Highways Department to intervene during the process. An expert panel also found that the department had frequently challenged the MTR Corporation over the progress of the project, but was constantly reassured that the original completion date could be achieved. Well, from today onwards, the Hospital Authority will provide waiting time information for specialist services. This allows patients to book appointments at specialist clinics at other hospitals, resulting in quicker services. Rani Samtani has more details.
Specialist services at public hospitals are known for their long waiting times. According to the Hospital Authority, the longest waiting time to see an orthopedic specialist at a Kowloon East Cluster Hospital is 160 weeks for cases that are not considered urgent. That's approximately 3 years. The Hospital Authority announced that starting from today, it will provide waiting time information for its specialist services. This will allow patients to choose a specialist at a hospital with a shorter waiting time. For example, because the waiting time at Kowloon East Cluster Hospitals is considered too long, a patient can choose to book an appointment at a hospital in the Hong Kong West Cluster, where the waiting time is 40 weeks. The new system will cover specialists in various fields such as ophthalmology, gynecology, pediatrics, orthopedics, medicine, and surgery. This man welcomed the new arrangement. He said he's been having difficulties getting an eye appointment and has had to wait for half a year. But this woman said other factors need to be taken into consideration, such as the quality of the hospitals. She noted that, for example, Tuen Mun Hospital has a poorer rating compared with other hospitals. The Hospital Authority said it will regularly update the waiting time information for specialist services. Members of the public can check the authority's website for details or inquire at its specialist outpatient clinics. Rani Samtani, TVB News.
To overseas news, the fates of a Japanese journalist and Jordanian pilot held hostage by Islamic State militants remain in limbo today. The Jordanian government made it clear it would not release an al-Qaeda prisoner in a swap until it had proof the pilot is still alive. Ellen Buknia has more.
My name is Rinko. I am the wife of Kenji Goto. I fear that this is the last chance for my husband.
In her first public message since the ordeal began, Kenji Goto's wife pleaded with the Japanese and Jordanian governments to secure the release of her husband. Rinko Jogo said she'd avoided making public comments until now to protect her daughters, an infant and a 2-year-old, from media attention. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe told Parliament today his government was continuing to work closely with Jordan. An audio message released on Wednesday, purportedly to be the voice of Goto, said Jordanian pilot Muat al-Qasasbeh would be killed if an al-Qaeda would-be suicide bomber in jail in Amman was not released by sundown yesterday. But the Jordanian government is demanding proof that al-Qasasbeh is alive first. The pilot's father made another appeal, saying Islamic State would win the appreciation of all Jordanians and Palestinian Muslim tribes if they released his son. Outside the tribal center where Safi al-Qasasbeh was speaking, protesters chanted anti-U.S. slogans and criticized Jordan for its handling of the crisis. They called on their government to stop cooperating with the U.S.-led international coalition that's battling Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. Alan Buknia, TVB News.
An Egyptian militant group affiliated with Islamic State has claimed responsibility for coordinated and simultaneous attacks in 3 towns in the Sinai Peninsula. 32 people were killed in those attacks. They struck more than a dozen army and police targets. The Islamic State affiliate called the assault an extensive, simultaneous offensive for the soldiers of the caliphate. The militant group had launched several attacks against the military in the Sinai Peninsula in recent years.
Relatives of those on the Malaysia Airlines jetliner, which vanished last year while flying from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, remain frustrated that the vast search for it has yielded nothing. Yesterday, Malaysia officially declared MH370's disappearance an accident, which should clear the way to pay compensation to the relatives of those on board, who are now presumed dead.
The Malaysian government confirmed last night what many have suspected for some time, that Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 was an accident which no one survived.
Survivability in the defined area is highly unlikely. It is therefore with the heaviest heart and deepest sorrow that on behalf of the government of Malaysia, we officially declare Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 an accident.
The declaration fulfills a legal obligation that will allow efforts to proceed with compensation claims. While many were glad they could demand compensation, there is still anger that after nearly a year, authorities are none the wiser about the cause of MH370's mysterious disappearance and where it might have crashed.
Yes, it will help a lot of families, I know, because, they are financially strapped and all that, but our main priority is to get back our loved ones.
In China, where many of the passengers were from, there was also frustration that the investigation hadn't yielded any sign of the missing plane and those on board. The Malaysia Airlines Boeing 777, with 239 passengers and crew, disappeared on March the 8th last year while en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. Months of searching, first in the South China Sea and now across the vast Indian Ocean, have failed to turn up any trace. It's become one of the great mysteries of aviation history.
And still ahead in the news this Friday night, ATV executives in court over late pay. Deadly blast rocks Mexico City Hospital. And an unwelcome visitor at a TV studio.
Saturday night.
I must be the one to kill Harry Potter.
Nobody else is going to die. Not for me.
He's after you, Mr. Potter.
Tell me where he is.
You really don't stand a chance. I have seen your heart, and it is mine.
Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 1, on Pearl.
The Community Care Fund has relaunched a program to provide a living subsidy for eligible non-public housing and non-CSSA low-income households to relieve their financial pressure. Applications are being handled in phases. Previous program beneficiaries will receive letters and need not apply again. For details, please visit the fund's website or call 2180-6666. One-person households can confirm eligibility or submit new applications now.
Here are this year's Best Actor nominees: Steve Carell, Bradley Cooper, Benedict Cumberbatch, Michael Keaton, and Eddie Redmayne, but only one will take home the Oscar. Hui Optical celebrates the Oscars on Pearl. The time now is 7:44. The time check was brought to you by Seiko.
Welcome back. A court hearing was held today over ATV's failure to pay staff their salaries on time. The case has now been adjourned.